Peace, 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 IG. Daniel KC1 NCF. Tapping in with you. And this is going to be daily survival tip number 7. Plan for both sheltering in place and bugging out. You got to have a plan to shelter in place as well as a plan to bug out. It's a very important thing to understand. You can't or you shouldn't put all your eggs into one basket, right? That's how the old saying or adage or story goes. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Always have contingency plans. Always prepare yourself to meet and overcome all obstacles in your path, not just one obstacle. And so, what are we talking about? When you're thinking about survival and preparedness, one of the first things you have to solidify is where you plan on surviving. What is the geographical location you plan to be at to wait out or to survive through whatever situation or circumstance may befall you. Now, regular, everyday, if you can call it that, everyday emergencies that might be, on just a family scale, something personal, that type of survival situation might not be location based, right? But when you're talking about shelter in place versus bugging out, you might be talking about something that is local or regional, meaning there's an incident, there's a happening that is affecting your local environment, city, state, something to that effect, neighborhood, right? And then you have situations that may affect you or affect us on a national or maybe even international scale. So depending on the situation and circumstance, the survival situation that you find yourself in is going to determine, what it is you're going to do, right? So it's the same thing for determining bugging out versus sheltering in place. Now, there are many reasons why you might do one and many reasons why you might do the other. Essentially, sheltering in place means that when a disaster strikes, when an emergency happens, where maybe it's a martial law situation, it could be an earthquake situation, it could be hurricane, it could be social unrest, martial law. I don't know if I said that already, but basically a situation where the safest option for you, the most practical option for you to take with yourself and your family is to shelter in place. Stay in your home, hunker down, have some food stored, have some water stored, have some emergency supplies stored, flashlights, whatever have you, first aid, and stay in your house for a prolonged period of time to wait out the duration of a disaster or adverse event. So that's sheltered in place. Bugging out means just that, something happens in your city, in your town, in your state, and your home where you live becomes inhabitable. It becomes dangerous for you to stay there. And of course, I get on here and we hear sirens almost right away, right? It's going to be dangerous for you to remain where you are. So it's actually safer for you to get up and go. It could be due to a fire in the home, or a wildfire that could be moving towards your home, a wildfire that could be heading in your direction. That might be a reason to bug out. If you live in a flood-prone environment, especially during this time of the year, you got Hurricane Elsa happening right now, and there's a lot of flooding going on, and they're worried about it. It's head towards Cuba. I forgot which place it got hit. I think it's Barbados, but Florida looked like it's going to get hit to some degree by Hurricane Elsa, right? So if people are living in flood-prone areas in Florida, sheltering in place is an option. Bugging out is an option because flooding is a possibility. And hurricanes have the ability to knock down buildings and destroy infrastructure. So that may be a reason why a person would bug out. It can be, maybe a piece to the Q minus for tapping in and Majestic Gauge. Thank you all for tapping in. So there's a number of reasons why you might choose one or the other. There's a whole list of things I could go down, right? But this is the reality. You should have a plan for both. You don't know what disaster it's going to be that might strike, that might put you in a position to where you have to bug out and or shelter in place. And I say and or. The only reason why it would be an and is if, for the beginning part of a disaster, it may make sense for you to shelter in place, and then later on things progress and lead to you having to bug out of a situation. But you do have to have plans for both, because if you plan to shelter in place but something happens where you have to evacuate your home, but all your preps are just local. You don't actually have a bug out bag built. You don't have a bug out location, which could be, if you can afford it, something like a bug out cabin or house somewhere that you bought or built somewhere outside of your city, outside of your state. If you can afford that kind of thing, that's an option. Also, if it's a localized thing or regional, you might be able to bug out of that location to a hotel or some kind of shelter or a family member's house outside of your state, outside of your city. That's what you would do if you were bugging out. But if you only have provisions for sheltering in place, then when disaster strikes, an emergency happens, and while for a hurricane you might have a few days notice, once that notice comes, you're not the only one getting it, which means other people are going to be mobbing the stores. Other people are going to be on the highways, in the roads, doing stuff to prepare themselves for the same disaster that you're preparing yourself for. So it's kind of too late once you get to the warning phase. There's a wildfire 20 miles out from you heading your direction. That's not the time after you get that warning to start planning a bug out, but you've been prepping for sheltering in place all this time. No. Have your provisions in the home just in case you have to shelter in place, but also have that go bag ready by that door with everything you need in it to get you from point A, which is your home, your office, or wherever have you, to point B, which is somewhere outside of the potential disaster zone at a predetermined location if you can. Again, a bug out location that you built or paid for, a cabin in the woods or in a mountain in the hills somewhere, a family member's home, a hotel, something like that, right? But same thing. You don't want to just go and say, well, I'm just going to get the bare minimum that they be talking about in the prepping world. I'm going to build me a bug out bag. And I got 3 days worth of food in this bag for each member of my family. We each have a bag, and if something happens, we'll just go. But the situation actually comes and it calls for you to shelter in place. Now, you'll have some provisions because you have things in your bag. But what you can store up in a bag and what you would take for you in a bug out situation, if you end up having a shelter in place for 2 weeks, a month, what you stored up in those bags isn't going to cover you for that time. Now, will you still have some form of security? Yes, likely you already have things in the refrigerator, things in the cabinets. Hopefully, if you're not one of them day-to-day shoppers and you shop for a week, 2 weeks at a time, whatever have you, you'll have something. But again, if you plan just to bug out because you think that the event that's going to take place, you see, okay, well, this is typically what happens in my region or my area. If that ever happens and it comes to my house, I'm bugging out. But you end up having to shelter in place. Those provisions are not going to last you. So it's best to have your food stocked up at home. 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, a year, whatever you can afford. Start now and work towards those. Make them goals, if you will. Make them 30 days at a time. First goal, 30 days worth of food. Okay, we got that. Next thing, 60 days. Okay, good, we got that. Next thing, 90 days. Okay, we got 90 days worth of food. Next goal, 6 months worth of food. Next goal, a year's worth of food. Or maybe you go to 9 months and then a year. But at the same time, have your bug out bags prepared because that might, again, be the situation and circumstance. And again, just like, you don't want to have to get a warning call or you don't want to be in a situation where you get the warning, potential hurricane making landfall within the next 48 to 72 hours. And again, everyone else is scrambling to the grocery stores, or you're trying to pick through the stuff you have stored in your home to decide what you want to put in this bag when you can already have the bag ready. Because that could take time. If you sitting there and you have to do it last minute, if you do it now, you got a bag, you're fine with that bag. When they give you that warning, see, that 72 hours doesn't mean you have 72 hours to decide. It means you got a 72-hour window before this thing gets here. So it's not like I got 3 days to figure out what I want to take with me. No, you need to get out and get yourself 3 days in between you. So if they say there's 72 hours that it might make landfall, you need to be thinking about being out of that house within within 12 to 24 hours, right? Because storms might speed up, it might slow down, it might not make landfall, but you want to get out of the house between 12 to 24 hours if they're giving you a 72-hour window. Because if you hit the road at 72 hours, it might be too late. Again, that road might be jammed. Other people that are taking forever to figure out what they want to get, they might not leave within that 12-hour, 24-hour window, but those last 2 days getting closer to the evacuation time cutoff, or not cutoff, but the recommended time, the roads are going to get more and more blocked. So you want to get out in that early window, and the best way to do that is to already have a bag made, so that, because in that last minute, I'm telling you, if you have to make that bag at the last minute, they're going to be fighting with yourself on what you want to bring, what you don't want to bring. Planning years out, planning months out for a go bag is tough. What do I want to bring? You sit there, you put a bag together, and you're like, dang, nah, but I really want to bring that. You start to compromise, or not compromise, you start to make adjustments. No, let me take this out and add that in. You think about 2 days later, you might say, no, I'm switching back. I've rethought it. They're like, what? I do want to have that. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take you never really, a bug out bag is something that you might pack, unpack, repack, and really you should pack it, unpack it, repack it, unpack it, repack, even if you're putting the same stuff back in the bag, just to get familiar with what's in the bag. Get familiar with working with the bag, working with the zippers, making sure that they're working right, making sure that the stitching is good. You might buy a bag and reinforce the stitching before you even have opportunity to rip a stitch. Go in, reinforce your zippers, reinforce your stitches at the beginning, and all of that. If the straps aren't padded, make them padded. You know what I mean? There's all kind of things you could do to modify your bag, but you do want to work with it in advance. And you're not going to have that option if you're trying to make a bug out bag out of a regular school bag, because you didn't go buy you a nice, decently made hiking bag or something like that, or a bag that's made for bug out, a tactical bag for that purpose. Get a bag that is going to be comfortable for you. Something you want something with nice padded straps that are ergonomic, that is going to fit you right. You want a bag that has your chest harness, and something that has a waist harness, something that you can strap to your waist, into your sternum strap is called, so that you can take some of the pressure off of your shoulders and your lower back, right? You want to make sure that you get a bag that's the right size. That one could be difficult, the first time around. I had to switch up my bag because I got a bag. I'm like, I don't need nothing that big. I'm not going to really have that. Yeah, right. That was bullcrap. I ended up getting a bigger bag and stuffing that bag. And so I'm going to end up giving a smaller one to my son for his stuff. But the reality is that, you might not get it right on the first try. So you got to give yourself time. Start stocking up your home and getting things in your home for a time where you may have to shelter in place for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. Who knows how long, right? But most people is going to tell you, 30 to 90 days. They're going to tell you, most people are going to tell you either 30, 60, or 90 days. Those are going to be the most likely numbers you hear. But obviously, your goal should be, to get as much as you can, a minimum a year. You start where you can start. Just because you might not be able to get a year's worth of food and the time managed you might want to get it, doesn't mean you don't start at all. Get to the 10-day mark. Some people don't have 10 days worth of food in their home. Get to the 20-day mark, 15-day, whatever you have to do, start stocking up, but also have that go bag ready. So that's daily survival tip number 7. Begin or shelter in place, plan for both sheltering in place and for bugging out. So this is the 7th day that completes 1 week of daily survival tips. Go back and watch my previous videos. Please hit the like button on those older videos if you can. Leave a comment if you found any value in them. Also tag somebody in the comment sections and and invite them and let them know that this is something that they may be able to find value in. Also, if you're not already, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Daniel KC1NCF. Also, my Facebook page, Daniel KC1, and that's KCONE. Alphabetical one, alphabetical, spell it out, ONE, NCF. So KC1 NCF on Facebook as well. And like, share, comment on the videos, because they will also be posted on Facebook. Thank you for your time and attention, family. Daniel KC1 NCF signing out. Peace.